Sometimes people dislike you for reasons they will never admit. Not because you hurt them, not because you attacked them, but because your presence reminds them of something they avoid within themselves. And the strangest part is, the more self-aware, calm, or emotionally independent you become, the more certain people quietly start resenting you. Not everyone will celebrate your growth. Not everyone will feel comfortable around someone who sees through emotional games, values peace over approval, and no longer begs to be accepted. And if you've ever felt confused by cold energy, fake support, passive-aggressive comments, or sudden distance from people you never wronged, this video may explain more than you realize. Because human beings don't only react to who you are, they react to how you make them feel about themselves. A lot of hidden dislike begins with comparison, and comparison is one of the most silent psychological forces in human behavior. Most people walk through life unconsciously measuring themselves against others. Your confidence, your emotional control, your discipline, your authenticity, your ability to stay calm when life becomes difficult. Even your peace. And the painful truth is, people don't always envy arrogance. Sometimes they envy inner stability. There is something deeply unsettling about someone who doesn't desperately seek validation from the world. Someone who can sit alone, stay grounded, and still feel emotionally whole. That kind of emotional independence quietly exposes how dependent others may secretly feel inside themselves. You may think you're simply being yourself, but to someone struggling with insecurity, your calmness can feel intimidating. Your self-respect can feel arrogant. Your boundaries can feel personal. And psychologically, this makes perfect sense. Human beings naturally feel comfortable around predictability. People unconsciously expect you to remain who you used to be, the version that over-explained itself, the version that tolerated disrespect to keep everyone happy, the version that constantly made itself smaller so others could feel comfortable. But when you start healing, growing, and respecting your own energy, some people begin feeling emotionally disconnected from you. Not because you became a bad person, but because your growth disrupted the role they were emotionally comfortable with. This is why certain people only seem to like you when you're struggling. They support you when you feel insecure, confused, or emotionally dependent. But the moment you regain confidence, clarity, or emotional strength, their energy changes. Suddenly, they become distant, colder, or strangely competitive. Because insecure people often feel emotionally safe around versions of you that seem smaller than them. And when you stop shrinking yourself, you unintentionally challenge the emotional hierarchy they created in their minds. That challenge creates silent resentment, not always consciously, but emotionally. And what makes this even deeper is that many people never fully realize why they dislike someone. They simply feel irritated, defensive, or uncomfortable around them. Because human beings are experts at avoiding painful self-awareness. This is where shadow psychology begins. People often reject qualities in others that reflect hidden parts of themselves, the confidence they abandoned, the honesty they suppress, the emotional freedom they secretly crave. So when they see someone expressing those traits naturally, it emotionally triggers them. Your authenticity reminds them how disconnected they feel from themselves. Your discipline reminds them of their inconsistency. Your emotional intelligence reminds them of the chaos they avoid confronting internally. And instead of processing those feelings honestly, many people unconsciously project them outward. Projection is one of the most common psychological defense mechanisms. People place uncomfortable emotions onto others because it protects their ego from self-confrontation. It's easier to call someone cold than admit you feel emotionally dependent around them. Easier to say someone is too confident than admit their self-respect exposes your insecurities. Easier to criticize someone's growth than face your own fear of change. Once you understand this, so many confusing social experiences suddenly start making sense. You begin realizing why certain people subtly mock your dreams after you become focused. Why some friends become quieter when your life improves. Why some people support you only when you're emotionally available for their problems, but disappear when you begin protecting your peace. Because many social connections are built unconsciously around emotional roles. Some people need you to remain insecure so they can feel superior. Some need you to stay emotionally dependent so they can feel needed. And some become uncomfortable the moment you stop seeking their approval. The truth is, emotionally mature people often make others uncomfortable without trying to. Not because they think they're better than everyone else, but because emotional stability itself is rare. Loud confidence is easy to dismiss, but quiet confidence unsettles people differently. Because it doesn't beg for attention, it doesn't perform, it doesn't constantly prove itself, it simply exists. And there's something psychologically intimidating about people who no longer need external validation to feel valuable. You may notice this especially when you stop reacting emotionally to everything. The calmer you become, the more certain people try to provoke reactions from you. Because emotionally reactive people often feel uncomfortable around emotional control. Your silence forces them to sit with their own noise. Your calmness highlights their impulsiveness, and your emotional boundaries expose their lack of self-control. This is why emotionally intelligent people are often misunderstood. Not because they're superior, but because they no longer participate in emotional chaos the same way they once did. And unfortunately, many people bond through negativity, through gossip, through complaining, through shared insecurity. So when you stop feeding those patterns, people may accuse you of changing. But growth always changes relationships. The more authentic you become, the more you unintentionally filter people out of your life. Because authenticity itself is threatening in a world where most people wear emotional masks. Most people hide parts of themselves to avoid rejection. They suppress opinions, emotions, and vulnerabilities just to feel accepted. So when someone becomes unapologetically genuine, it creates tension. Authenticity forces people to confront the gap between who they truly are and who they pretend to be. This is why highly authentic people often experience both admiration and resentment at the same time. Some people secretly respect your courage while simultaneously feeling uncomfortable around it. And one of the biggest emotional triggers for insecure people is boundaries. The moment you say no without guilt, stop over-explaining yourself, or distance yourself from draining behavior, people suddenly reveal how entitled they felt to your energy. Some people don't hate your boundaries. They hate losing access to the version of you that had none. And perhaps the hardest truth of all is that some people dislike you simply because you remind them of what they could have become. Not because you're perfect, not because your life is flawless, but because something about your energy reflects a path they abandoned within themselves. Maybe it's your creativity, your emotional depth, your discipline, your self-respect, your willingness to evolve instead of staying emotionally stuck. Your existence becomes a mirror, and mirrors make people uncomfortable, especially people avoiding themselves. But this doesn't mean you should become colder or more guarded. The goal isn't to shrink yourself so insecure people feel safer around you. The goal is to understand human psychology deeply enough that you stop personalizing every negative reaction. Not every judgment reflects reality. Not every cold attitude is truly about you. Sometimes people are fighting internal battles you accidentally triggered simply by being authentic. And once you understand that, you stop chasing universal approval. You stop exhausting yourself trying to make everyone comfortable. You stop over-explaining your intentions to people committed to misunderstanding you. Because self-awareness changes the way you see human behavior. You realize people don't always respond to your heart. They respond to their wounds, fears, ego, insecurities, and the silent emotional stories they carry inside themselves. And the more authentic you become, the more polarized reactions naturally become. Some people will feel inspired by your growth. Others will quietly resent it. Some will feel safe in your energy. Others will feel exposed by it. That's the cost of becoming emotionally real in a world addicted to performance and emotional masks. But eventually, you stop asking, "Why do they dislike me?" and you start asking something deeper. Am I abandoning myself just to be easier for others to accept? Because the truth is, becoming emotionally independent, self-aware, and authentic will never make you universally liked, but it will make you internally free. And sometimes, the people who secretly resent your light are simply people still struggling to face their own darkness.